Welcome back, viewers at home, and thank you so much for tuning in right here on INX Prime. We're about to have an amazing conversation with an operation manager from Gift of the Givers. Now, they are celebrating 32-year anniversary, and we're looking forward to be honored by Rayhaan Sooliman, the operations manager of this remarkable organization. Now, over the past 3 decades, Gift of the Givers has made an inedible mark through its humanitarian efforts, providing aid and relief in numerous crises across the globe. Now, Rayhaan will share with us the secrets behind their success, and we'll also talk about the humanitarian situation in Gaza and how Gift of the Givers is making a difference there. Assalamu alaikum, Rayhaan, and welcome to Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam and salam to the listeners,
Now,
to
one
the
thing
viewers
for
rather.
amazing, Jazakallah so much. Apologies about that. Now, one thing for sure about any organization, it's always best to understand the origin story or the background as to what really brought about or birthed Gift of the Givers. And I'd like for you to start there with us by sharing the origins of Gift of the Givers and as well as what inspired its inception.
So I think people have heard Dr. Suleiman tell the story a number of times, but he starts off in 1992. But actually, Gift of the Givers as an organization exists from 1992, but the work started before that. From the 80s, as a young doctor, Dr. Suleiman traveled to Mozambique, and he saw the need when he was there, traveling then with as a recently qualified medical doctor. He started then what was called the Mozambique Relief Fund, raised some funds, and then did a small intervention in Mozambique. Then fast forward a year later, the cyclone hit Bangladesh, and people said, "Well, you were able to work in Mozambique. Why don't you do something for Bangladesh?" And then the Bangladesh Relief Fund came about, and at that time, the South African community rallied behind him as well as a few other volunteers. We managed to load a ship that took aid to Bangladesh with the South African government. Then, a year later was the Gulf War in Iraq, and we had the Gulf War Relief Fund that was created. And like that, this type of work became something that he became known for. But it wasn't something that he planned to do full time. He still had his medical practices. He was still working as a medical doctor. We were a young family back then, and it was seen as something that was done by the way, let's say. And then through a number of, let's say, for lack of a better word, coincidences, he ended up in Istanbul and he met his Sufi sheikh. And at that point, at the meeting on 6th August 1992, which is exactly 32 years ago, his sheikh then gave him the instruction that said that you need to form the organization. It will be called Waqful Waqifin, and you will serve humanity unconditionally, regardless of race, color, creed, nationality, geographical location, political affiliation, all of those things. You will help anyone and you will not expect anything in return. And at that point, the organization was started as an idea, but we were still not much of how would we do it, how would we go about it. And then the first major project that came about was the Bosnia Relief War. I mean, the Bosnia Civil War. And at that point, that became the first international crisis that Gift of the Givers responded to. And from 1992 to 1995, that was all that my father did. So it started off with trying to send in humanitarian supplies from South Africa, and then it culminated in one of the largest projects and one of the things that I think put Gift of the Givers on the map, which was the 38-unit mobile hospital clinic. That was actually a complete hospital that was designed and built in South Africa and then transported with the help of the South African government at that time into Mostar in the middle of a war zone. And the remnants of that we still visited in 2005 as a family when we saw the work that was done many, many years earlier. So that's a story that still stays with me. And then from there, it grew, into a number of projects. We went into the Chechnya War, Kosovo relief. In South Africa, we worked in 1995 in the Edendale floods. But primarily, it was run as a disaster relief organization. And wherever there were people that were affected by disasters, whether natural or man-made, that was when Gift of the Givers would activate. But then since then it's grown, to the point where we now have a permanent presence in 8 countries with teams spread across the world. We've delivered 6 billion rand worth of aid. We've been activated in 47 countries, and the work carries on.
Amazing, and we cannot wait to see more beautiful work being carried out by Gift of the Givers. Now, who would you say are the key founders and what was their vision for the organization?
So I think, the first key founder we have to give credit to is the spiritual founder, the Sufi Sheikh, because he was the one that gave the instruction. If it wasn't for him, there would be no gift of the givers today. His name is Muhammad Safar Dal Muhibbi Effendi. He is from Istanbul, an area in Karagumruk, and he was the Grand Sheikh at that time of the Halveti Jarahi Tariqa, or the Sufi Tariqa. And that is when my father speaks about his sheikh, that's the person he's talking about. The man that he met, the man that he fell in love with, the man that taught him what Islam really was, and the man that told him how to serve humanity. So he is, if you want to put it, the real founder of Gift of the Givers. But when it comes to the physical work and the operations, obviously the most famous founder, the person that everybody knows is obviously Dr. Suleiman. But he's done it together with three other people at that point. They were my mother, so who's been at his side since then, and still is a major part of the organization. Her name is Zora. My mother's brother Rafiq, as well as my grandfather, my mother's father, Nur Muhammad. And where the two of them came in was when my father started, he was a newly qualified doctor. He had no business contacts, no bank account. Gift of the Givers was run out of my bedroom. But they were an established business, and we basically relied on them in the initial years, whether it was for money, whether it was for business contacts, whether it was for logistics, whether it was for staffing. Everything that we needed was done by them, up until the point that we were able to outgrow that and then build Gift of the Givers into something that was able to stand on its own. So, as a spiritual founder, definitely the Sufi Sheikh. And then those four founders were the ones that, it was their vision and their initial efforts that took Gift of the Givers to what it is today.
Now, looking at the mission itself, would you say that the mission of Gift of the Givers has evolved? If so, in what way?
So I don't think we'd say the mission itself has evolved. It was always created as service to humanity. But the way and the ambition in which we have to serve humanity has definitely evolved. In the early days, we were a small organization funded mainly by the Muslim community in South Africa, limited by that worldview that we had. There wasn't, we didn't have this global village in which we're living in today. We didn't have that exposure. We didn't have that type of reach. But we did the best we could with what we knew then. But over the time, our ambition and our goals has grown, but with the same common vision of service to humanity. So, in terms of the type of projects you'd have seen in the early days, it was very much reactive disaster response and with the support of just the food and humanitarian supplies. That over the years had evolved to supporting people with then, medical equipment, relief efforts in terms of the medical side, which then got followed up with having a South African medical team travel in the middle of disaster areas. That was then followed up with the addition of a search and rescue team. That then grew into rehabilitation and recovery. That then grew into 21 other projects that Gift of the Givers does outside disasters, which we like to say are always disaster ready. So whether it's in hunger alleviation, water provision, education, healthcare, social upliftment, in all of these categories, we've designed projects that you'll see us implementing in all the countries that we work in, and all of them are able to scale during the disaster. So our primary goal as a disaster response agency, as a humanitarian relief agency, is still very much in place, but our ambition and the amount of work that we'd like to do in each of these communities has definitely grown.
Now, speaking on that, I'd like for you to just give us an overview of the main projects and areas of focus for Gift of the Givers.
So, the first one or the main one that we always speak about is disaster response. And I think that's what most people have come to know us for. When there's a crisis called Gift of the Givers. I mean, we'd like to be known for people that have do other good in the community outside disasters. But, that by and large is when people remember us when something bad happens. But that disaster response is not, limited in the sense that it's grown over the years, like what we were speaking about just a few minutes ago. It includes the humanitarian relief, it includes the food supplies, the blankets, the medicines, and all of those type of things, the logistics that go into disaster response, whether it's in a natural or a man-made disaster. But it now also includes the medical teams and the support teams that go on an ongoing basis. It includes the search and rescue teams that might have to follow. It includes the trauma counseling that goes with that. And then it includes the rehabilitation and the rebuilding of the disaster-affected areas. To give an example, if we take the Syrian crisis from 2012, when we got involved, in December 2012, we thought, okay, within a year, the crisis will be over. And, life would go back to normal. And at that point, we realized that that's not actually going to be the case. We started off with we gave the go-ahead to build a hospital in 2012. In April 2013, we took in a team of 62 people. That hospital, from what it was when we started, was a single floor that tried to cover all of the specialities to now a hospital compound with 6 buildings, 300 staff serving 15,000 patients every month. So that's the scope or the scale of how things grow out of the disaster response. In South Africa, you'll see a lot of our projects in education and healthcare, especially post-disaster with the rehabilitation and the refurbishment of schools, as well as hospitals, where we try to make sure that the public sector is able to deal with the influx of patients or provide a good education. To students that can't afford to go to private care. Now, this isn't really disaster response, but most of that work springs or comes out after a disaster because what you find is that we're always on the edge, especially in South Africa and even in the other countries. What you find is that because of the lack of resources, because of the problems that we have, any small change pushes us over the edge. And then we're always in this disaster response mode. And what we're trying to do more and more is to build this resilience, to build a support structure, to build the fact that we can stand by ourselves, that we don't get tipped over every time something happens. So a lot of our work as Gift of the Givers is in that rebuilding and strengthening the systems that exist so that we're not that badly hit by disasters going forward. And just in terms of the geographical locations, South Africa is obviously our biggest base. It's our headquarters. It's the place where we do a lot of our work. And I mean, people shouldn't be bluffed. The need in South Africa is significant. Yes, we live in a very dual society where we have very well off, but the people that are suffering are really suffering. And Gift of the Givers tries to reach them in South Africa as much as we do in other parts of the world. Then moving up in Africa, we have a base in Zimbabwe as well with our team in Malawi. We have a very big presence in Somalia, both in Mogadishu as well as in Jubaland area. We're busy expanding into Kenya, and we are starting now expanding in West Africa in Mali. We have a team in Yemen, in Palestine, in Syria, in Turkey, and we do work in Lebanon as well. And these are projects that are ongoing throughout the year.
Now, Rayhaan, do you believe, now seeing you've mentioned earlier on, through the success in terms of Gift of Givers was driven by the key founding members and, considering your dad was just freshly out of, graduate school and being a new doctor in the field and having the support of family, just, carrying him through and that of Sheikh as well. I want to understand from you, do you believe there are key factors behind the success and longevity of the Gift of the Givers?
So I think you hit the nail on the head there with the support. All the key members that were at the founding stage are still very much actively involved in the organization even 32 years later. So it's not something that was taken on as a job for them or the task that was done in passing. It's something that they actively believe pursuing till today. So I think the fact that we have all the founding members with us, in the absence of the Sheikh, but I mean with his successor, as well as the 4 founding members, that has done, that's a tremendous part of why Gift of the Giver's success is there. We have the people that had that vision to pass it down, to share it with the rest of the team, to ensure that that guidance is provided. So that's one of the aspects. The second one is, I think those people have the maturity to allow the rest of the team to do their job. You often, something like this can go 2 ways. It can be where you, as the founder or as the people that started it, you're so tied to your vision that you're unable to let people do their jobs properly or let it grow. And while they're there to provide us with the guidance, with the mentoring, with the coaching, with, everything that we need to get our jobs done, they're also trusting us to get it done. And I think that makes a very big difference because otherwise the work would have been stifled. And we see that in each of the countries where we've established. Because what we find is, and especially, with internationally led organizations, is that you tend to enforce something in the community. Whereas we've always taken the approach that each country is run locally. So in Zimbabwe, all our staff are Zimbabwean. In Malawi, all of our staff are Malawian. In Yemen, they are all Yemeni. In Syria, they are all Syrian. In Palestine, they are all Palestinian. Because we are not building a Gift of the Givers for us. We're building it to solve a problem in that community, with the community, for the community, And that's what drives it as well. That local knowledge, that local support base, that buy-in. The second part, or this other side of the same point is that most of those people are themselves directly affected by the work that we are doing. So they are personally invested in its success. So as the Malawian team, as the Palestinian team, as the Syrian team, it's for their community, it's their families, it's their area that are seeing the support. Now, having someone from the outside coming in and enforcing it versus someone from the inside driving it, you see that very big difference in that. And today was where we had all the teams come together. Now, sharing that type of knowledge between the teams has also been a real driver for the success, where the problems that we have in Zimbabwe might be similar, although maybe manifesting differently in the Syrian team or the Yemeni team. But while you have that localized and that local knowledge and that locally driven thing, you have global exposure. And that global exposure opens your mind to what is possible and what can be done. And then you have the support of the gift of the givers core team that are helping you drive that forward. So I think all of those elements together have, helped us get this far. And, the one thing, outside that is people will always tell you, it's not the process, it's not the vision, it's the people. And the people that drive this. And besides the founders, the staff in every office, the management, the country directors, the boards of directors in each country, all of them have been phenomenal. It's taken 32 years to build it to that level. But the people that we have in place are there for a reason. They've been with us for a long time. They are committed to the cause, regardless of whether if you take the people in Syria, for example, even the people in Zimbabwe, many of them could have moved out. They could have gone to Europe. They could have earned huge salaries, but they've decided to stay behind, and to work for their communities. So when you have people like that, then success is, virtually guaranteed.
Now, Rayhaan, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I just want to squeeze one last question because this is something that we'd love to get more insight from you in terms of, can you provide an update on the current humanitarian situation in Gaza and what we can do in assisting?
Absolutely. So I think, we've been feeding updates from the start of the war, and initially we spoke about how our team were responding with, what we have had inside. Then we built up some support from Egypt, and then we've been able to support with our team from, coming into Egypt to support the team inside Palestine. Since the invasion of Rafah, all of that has basically fallen away. It's almost we take everything day by day. Till now, since this, from the start of the war to now, we've managed to do 150 different interventions in Gaza. Ranging from different distributions of food hampers, hot meals, hygiene packs, fixing the water and desalination plants, psychological support, supporting the medical sector, across the different types of projects. But with a lot of, let's say, obstacles in the way. From Egypt, nothing is getting in at the moment. So probably for the last 2.5 months, we've not been able to get anything via Egypt. About 6 weeks ago, we've been able to get in a truck of blood clotting drugs as well as anesthetics, via Jordan, then into the West Bank down, and then into Gaza. We've been able to support the medical team. One of the biggest things that's happened at the moment that you might be seeing is this medical students that are now being supported, both inside Gaza, where we're trying to get them support to continue their studies, as well as outside. So the first lot of, well, it was supposed to be 27 students, but I think it's now 26. The one couldn't make it, that are going to complete their 6th-year studies in South Africa. That was done in partnership with a number of European organizations as well as UCT. So the work is going on, but let's be very blunt. It's not anywhere near the scale that's required, not anywhere near the speed that's required, not anywhere near, what the people need. And, not even, I think a month ago, we lost another person from our team.
Yeah.
We had recently appointed them to bring in some tents, which was donated by an American organization that was on the Israeli side. They were informed of, the team, who was going to be working, the locations of those teams, the drivers, everything was provided to the authorities that needed to be, aware. And still, before we were even able to complete the project, the group that were working with us were attacked, and 4 people died that day, including one of our team members. So the situation is extremely dire. It is not, there's almost like no good news. Even when we're doing interventions. And I mean, I don't want to belittle the work that's being done. It is necessary, but it's not at the scale and the scope of what is needed inside Gaza at the moment.
Rayhaan, Jazakallah so much, for time traveling with us through the journey of Gift of the Givers and helping us understand the core values as well as mission that is carried out by, Gift of the Givers and the amazing work, and also giving us the current update. Jazakallah so much for joining us this evening.
Jazakallah to you and Jazakallah to all our supporters everywhere. We can't do it without the well-wishers, the donors, and just the general public at large. So this, as much as is our celebration, we share it with everyone that's watching with us today. Jazakallah khair.
Ameen. Viewers at home, that was Rayhaan Sooliman, who is the operations manager of Gift of the Givers. Now, you've heard it from him himself in terms of what got Gift of the Givers to where it is right now. And I think something that is quite inspirational is the fact that if you're going to provide aid in different parts of the world, have the fellow citizens be, spearheading some of those projects because they best understand some of the daily lives of those very citizens.